Welcome to the city of Xiamen, China. And this seems to be a perfectly fine beach where you can perhaps go on a weekend vacation with your family, go have some fun during the national holidays. This is golden sand, beautiful sand, as well as beautiful waters, clear waters. Oh, and along with the sun and the perfect weather, this is the prime vacation spot. However, I have to tell you, this is not as peaceful as it can be. Well, if World War III ever starts, it is gonna start right here on this beach. And I'm gonna tell you why. Here is Communist China, People's Republic of China. And just 2 miles off on the other side of this tiny strait is Republic of China. Yeah, you can practically swim to the other side. And perhaps some people have already done it. And I'm gonna tell you why it came to be. Well, you see, this side is what you would normally call China. This is the People's Republic of China. This is communist. The other side of this tiny strait, you see those tiny islands over there, as well as the one on the horizons, they are actually part of what you will call Taiwan, the Republic of China. Yeah, so these two sides are technically at war. So this is not just a place for you to vacation. If a war ever breaks out, this will be the Normandy, the landing beach, the D-Day, whatever you call it. This will be the place. And that is why you can see this side, it has the largest font possible, demonstrating that, you know, you should try to adapt to the one country, two system, the communist ideal. And that was propaganda aimed straight at the other side.
And this is why if you visit Xiamen City, one of the most popular stretches of beach is actually the one country, two system beach, with its 4-story tall propaganda slogan facing directly towards the other side, Kinmen Island. And if you zoom in far enough, you can see on a small island on the opposite shore, there's a similar but older counter-propaganda made by the other side facing directly towards this beach as well.
Well, how did a war zone that is seemingly so peaceful came to existence right here on this beach? Well, we have to go all the way back. You see, after the fall of Qing Dynasty, which is the last ever emperor in 1912, a leader called Sun Yat-sen basically was the face, call it the George Washington of the Chinese people. And he was not particularly fond of any party, so he founded his own party called the Nationalists. And yeah, that is when all the trouble began, because without an absolute power and came with a sudden democracy, a lot of people are not used to it, and the military leaders are not particularly fond of giving people power. So the next 30-something years was full of chaos. The nationalists were fighting among themselves mostly, but also against all of the other ideals. And in 1922, the Chinese Communist Party came into the fray. Well, long story short, Sun Yat-sen failed many times and even exiled himself into Japan. And before he could accomplish his dream of finally unifying the entire China, he passed away. He gave the torch to his basically military command and the second in command, Chiang Kai-shek. And Chiang Kai-shek, before he could truly unite all of these warring warlords throughout the entire China, the Japanese came. Yes, the Chinese began fighting the Japanese in the so-called World War II, the Westerners will know, way before Hitler decided to even write a book. So yeah, that was the unfortunate truth. The entire 1930s, the entire China was basically in turmoil. Japanese was right at the doorstep, and the Chinese nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, was also not on friendly terms with the communists. So that led to the Second World War. Second World War, the Japanese came all around China. So during that time, the communists and the nationalists were relatively close. Well, just so that it's in the term of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, more or less like that. So yeah, that resulted in what happened after the Japanese surrender in 1945. The Japanese officially surrendered to the Republic of China, led by Chiang Kai-shek. And he decided to take over not only this, but also, according to the agreement among the allies, the island of Taiwan, which is about 100 miles off the coast of Xiamen. So if you sail directly that direction, you will probably reach it within one night or so. So he took over it as part of the entire Republic of China, and he had virtually control of all of the area. But that was only in theory, because the warlords before, as well as the communist factions, quickly decided that Chiang Kai-shek might not be the best dictator in the world, which he definitely was not. So a brutal civil war broke out after multiple rounds of discussion as well as peace talks, and yet that resulted in nowhere. The Mao Zedong led the communist rebellion, and quickly the Nationalist Party started to fumble. The Nationalist Party, mostly out of incompetence and partially because it was so tired of fighting the mighty Japanese army, quickly started crumbling. The entire country quickly fell to the communist powers, and by 1948, 1949, the only areas that it controlled is the southern China, around here in Cantonese provinces, as well here in Fujian province. And that led to it being mostly the last stronghold of the nationalist power. But by 1949, Chiang Kai-shek realized that he has mostly lost. So he decided to, fuck off to the other side of the strait and end up in the Taiwan Island. And this is one of the very last places that he evacuated. So he decided to say, you know what? The communists have no plane, they have no boats. Well, I have all of the American planes and American boats that was generally donated to me by the freedom-loving Americans. So he decided to hold the island just a few miles offshore. And that is how it ended up becoming in the nationalist hands, because most of the other areas were basically given to the communists for free. If you are asking, well, why don't the communists just regroup for a few months or perhaps a few years and get some boats and planes and perhaps even some cannon and just fire off to the other side into the Kinmen Islands? Well, by the way, this is called the Kinmen on the other side. This side is called Xiamen. You can see even the names are practically the same. Yeah, my inquisitive and very hypothetical viewer who definitely did not click on this video out of boredom, that is a very good question. Indeed, the communists did multiple times, because these islands are so close that I'm pretty sure if the wind favors me, I can spit far enough so that my germs will land on the other side. So they did. In 1953, 1957, and many, many more times, they decided to bomb the other side as a show of strength. And also, perhaps, if they succeed, as the first whistle, the first blow of the horn towards full-on scale war. And every time they were deterred by the American nuclear power. In the first couple years, in 1952, 1953, and 1957, every time they tried to bombard the other side, which they launched more than 10,000 shells daily and practically leveled the entire other side into just ruins. And they somehow were able to receive messages from a mysterious nuclear superpower called the United States. And they basically just said, if you decide to conquer that island, I'm gonna nuke you.
As a result, the Mao Zedong regime realized that for these tiny pieces of islands, it is simply not worth provoking the wrath of the American nuclear response. At the time, they had no capabilities to invade the Taiwan main island anyway, so they simply resulted to daily bombardment that will hopefully diminish the fighting spirits of the Nationalist Party on the other side.
In fact, the bombardment became so regular that it was basically useless. Starting in 1950s, this side, the communist side, said that publicly they are only going to bombard the other side on even days. And the other side decided to retaliate by saying that they are only going to bombard here on all the days. So that means it is basically useless. You're just wasting ammunition because nobody's going to be out here walking around on all days. And it's the same on the other side. And in fact, it became literally sending a message. On every odd and even days, both sides are gonna bombard each other, not with live ammunition, but with actual messages. They're gonna send a shell on the other side. When it opens up, it only releases pamphlets. Nobody is hurt. But during some international crisis, they're still gonna put some gunpowder in it. And for the next 30 years or so, this has become the status quo. You bombard me, I bombard you, nobody takes any losses. Everyone saves face, you know, the typical Chinese way. And once China has developed its own nuclear program, it became a neutral deterrent. United States has its own nuke and they are protecting the other side, and China has its own nukes. They're protecting this side. So it's kind of like a mini Cold War across this tiny strait. And that was until the 1980s when the relationship started to thaw. That is because Chiang Kai-shek and its nationalist party started to lose its grip on the power on the other side. And it suddenly became possible that the other side's steadfast, rock-steady determination to try to be independent, to try to even fight back and re-attack this side, has started to wane after 50 or so years. And that is when the new parties, the new generation of Taiwanese start to come in. And there might be a chance for reunification under peaceful means. So what is even the point of attacking the other side when the other side will capitulate peacefully? That is all in theory. So this is somehow two islands of the warring factions of one so-called China are still standing about 2 miles off each other 60 years after the Civil War is supposedly dying down. And these two sides are still technically at war, so there's no diplomatic relationships. But these are all in the past. We are now more and more focused on what will happen in the future. So let's talk about it. But first step, let's go to the other side. I know I'm extremely privileged because nowadays, especially since the pandemic, a vast majority of the citizens of Xiamen as well as mainland China are not able to use this ferry service that can carry me to Kinmen. That's just merely 30 minutes away because the new party here on the other side of the strait is not particularly friendly with the communists. Thus, only the people from the Taiwanese side as well as foreigners are able to use this ferry service. So this is eerily quiet. This is only a very, very small part of a huge complex, and it is not even barely full. And there's only like 8 to 10 sailings per day, each carrying about 100 passengers. So this is actually quite strange for me. But let's get to the other side.
Upon landing on the other side in the Kinmen Islands and passing through a set of quite strict security and biohazard checks, I rode a motorcycle around these tiny islands. It would take less than 2 hours to circle both the big and the small Kinmen Islands, and yet I found it to be a bizarre parallel universe version of what is an offer on the other side. There's quite a large shifting tone given the fact that there is barely any high-rise here on these islands, compared to the other side's bustling skyline plastered to the brink with LED lights. The agrarian lifestyle here is only broken apart by a small tank here and there, left from the days of military confrontations as monuments, and even more nationalist propaganda left from 40 to 70 years ago, slowly peeling away to the unrelenting hand of time. Miles upon miles of tunnels that used to connect one bunker with another are now left as one visitor center connected to another visitor center. And the only major township on the island looks more like a small village on the Taiwanese island rather than a bustling Chinese city, with traditional Chinese, an absolute chaotic display of all of the signs, a classic from the Taiwanese cities, an endless number of 7-Elevens and family marts. And yet all of these signs are advertising goods as well as services from the mainland, which will be categorized as treason and would get you court-martialed merely 35 years ago. And yet the most impressive sight I have witnessed on the islands is a direct response to a series of bombardment I have mentioned previously. The bombardment got so bad that now I'm at the other side in the Kinmen Islands, and you can see I am underground. This is because in one of the worst incidents, the August 23rd incident, just in one day,
50,000 shell rained from the mainland China onto this island. And thus, Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the Nationalist Party, decided to build a deep supply tunnel. The other side, you can see, goes from the outside directly into the ocean with water deep and goes all the way into the mountain. This is all granite, completely impenetrable. And during high tide, they can supply small ships by running like those tiny supply boats coming in from the outside and go directly dock inside, because there's no way they can supply the island using a surface dock. So this is one of a kind in the world, and this is one of the deepest tunnels in the entire world serving as this purpose. But the only downside is that this only functions during high tide, and during those times it was especially easy to target those boats.
And if you are interested in Cold War history and military constructions, you would find this place virtually impossible to leave. This is because almost half of these islands have been hollowed out and completely decked out with all kinds of bunkers. And almost all of them have been completely preserved. There are some that have been turned into museums, and there are so many others that are either abandoned or just simply left open for you to explore freely. For example, there is this one that allows you to get a closer look of the Xiamen city on the other side. And I can basically say it offers you a better view of the skyline than any other place on the mainland. And from this vantage point, you can also see how close these two places truly are. And the water is shallower than most of the YouTube kids channels out there. So there have been stories of soldiers positioned on those tiny islands in the middle of the neutral zone, silently getting their throats cut by special marine forces wearing diving suits in the middle of the night, and local farmers waking up to the sounds of the animals coming from the other side in the mornings. And there are also many bunkers filled to the brink with propaganda slogans the nationalists used to strengthen the mind of the soldiers. And it is practically impossible for you to move more than half a kilometer without seeing another bunker hidden somewhere beneath a building. There is even a special military installation used for psychological warfare, as they can broadcast radio from one side into the other, and if you have a simple radio receiver, you can illegally pick up signal from the other side. So the nationalists invited one of the most popular Chinese singers to come to this station and sing directly into the ears on the other side. But I am no war historian, so if you are interested, you have to come and see for yourself. I am just an idiot babbling online, so please let me tell you the two most popular proposed solutions that you have probably already heard hundreds of times on the news networks.
Well, as most of the Western medias have floated, there's the option one, that is independence. But let's be honest here. These two countries or regions are way too similar in order for Taiwan or the region of Taiwan to be independent. Because yeah, as you can see, it only took me 20 minutes by boat from Xiamen into Kinmen. That is closer in distance from than the airport to the dock itself, than from the dock of Xiamen to the dock of Kinmen. So these places are incredibly close. It is almost like saying that, oh, if you want to be independent, it's like the United Kingdom controlling the Key West islands of Florida. That makes absolutely no sense. And not to mention, most of these people, they are virtually identical. The language they speak, here the dialect is a southern version of Fujian dialect. It literally means that the Taiwanese language is the southern Fujian dialect in the name. So it is kind of ironic that a lot of people arguing for independence is actually ignoring the fact that these two people, as you have seen in the past couple minutes, are actually identical in their roots and origins. I mean, it is particularly ironic here in this tunnel designed specifically to defeat the communists. The gift shop nowadays have a door decoration that is in simplified Chinese. So this comes from the other side. And all of the toys inside, it's also coming from mainland China. Look. It is hilarious and ironic, and just shows that, you know, both sides, they kind of belong to the same family. What about the other option, which is unification? Well, it is kind of making sense now, isn't it? Both sides of the people are making roughly the same kind of life, and they speak the same kind of language, and most importantly, it is literally right there. Like, I mean, how close can this be? Huh? Look at this loudspeaker. You can spit loud enough for the other side to hear it. In fact, during the Cold War, this is a super ultra megaphone, and it was blasting propaganda to the other side 24/7. You can see the silhouette of the city on the other side, and yeah, some people have managed to swim across to defect on both sides. So it makes sense to reunify two groups of people who are so close and are sharing the same kind of cultural root. But you're kind of forgetting that these two people are kind of diverging. You see, a lot of the Taiwanese, after they moved to the Taiwan side, they were originally from the Chinese side, they really want to go back. But their children, their grandchildren are now the ones who are running the industries, running the factories, running the police station, running the government agencies. They have been born on the other side. They grew up their entire lives. Some of them, their parents are even spent the entire life on the Taiwanese side. They have never seen the other side. They don't know what it is like. And they have no desire to do that. And not to mention, reunification will basically bring absolute economic and cultural whiplash to this Taiwanese island. The other side has 20 times larger the military, 20 times larger the economic GDP, and 20 times larger the population. So yeah, it is not going to end up really well. Look up West Germany and East Germany after reunification. West Germany just gobbled up the entire other side economically and culturally. You don't want that to happen to this land if you are ruling here, do you? And more importantly, there are even more reasons not to reunify, as that there are so many different countries that share the same cultural and economic ties, and yet they still remain independent. Think about Singapore with Malaysia, or perhaps Ireland and England, or maybe Canada and United States. They are not merging despite all of the common roots. Why are the other sides saying that they should do it here? And yet, these are all very, very complicated topics, and reunification is probably the most complicated one. So yeah, it seems like reunification is definitely not on the table either. And the ironic and funny thing is that nowadays most of the Western media portray Taiwan or the Taiwanese or the nationalist government as freedom-loving democracy, one of the most democratic countries in the world with the fairest elections. It has not been the case during the past, because the sentiment of reunification has actually been mutual. The leader Chiang Kai-shek has always wanted to re-attack and reconquer the mainland, the entire thing, during his entire life. So yeah, here in an observation post in Kinmen, the biggest banner is instead of democracy or freedom or whatever, is actually give me back my territory. Yeah, that sounds a little bit personal. And as for both options, there are many more reasons, excuses, and perhaps causes that can justify either reunification or perhaps independence. And as for reunification, one of the largest one I can think of is actually that will make United States real mad. Think about it. The argument against reunification is that if Taiwan, one of the largest economies in the world despite its tiny size, somehow managed to merge with the most populous state in the world, can you imagine how terrifying the new China will be? US's global dominance might soon be lost. So maybe it's not to the US and perhaps the Western world's best interest to let Taiwan and China reunify. But as for independence, the argument against an independent Taiwan and this side is the water for these islands, the Kinmen Islands, literally come from the other side. Yes, there's not much water to go around here, so starting about 10 to 15 years ago, they started negotiating that the water of these Kinmen Islands come from Xiamen City. So yeah, good luck independence, huh? This will basically spell the doom of these islands. But no matter what it is, independence or reunification, let's hope that it is a peaceful transition, because we know for sure if it's not peaceful, World War III is gonna start here. The first artillery shell, the first gunshot fired is gonna come from the other side. And the first landing craft is gonna land on these beaches. And we know World War III, if it's gonna start right here. But okay, let me ask you a question. Does that really even matter? All of the Western media have presented two different options. Either it's reunification, or perhaps it is some kind of independence, de facto, or perhaps official. But for most of the people living here on both sides of the strait, they are just living their life. They want to live a proper, happy life full of all kinds of Chinese familial ties with their worshipping, with their daily lives intact. They just want to earn some money and perhaps wake up at the same time at 5 a.m. and make the same kind of pancakes or waffles or whatever the kind of rice dumplings they make here. And then maybe go to sleep at 9 p.m. knowing that they have earned a decent, honest living. And it doesn't matter if it's under communist or nationalist or capitalist or some kind of alien that has 7 tentacles that will tickle your butthole every evening. As long as people are happy, it doesn't matter, does it? So the question becomes, what now? My answer? I have no freaking clue. And honestly, neither should you, because I'm pretty sure the president sitting in the presidential palace in Taipei, as well as the Chinese prime minister in Zhongnanhai in Beijing, have no clue either. We can just hope that it will resolve peacefully, because look at this. Now there is a specialty industry here in Kinmen that collects old shells and make them into cutting knives. We don't want that to repeat again, do we? But maybe I can float an idea that is gonna get me so very much cancelled on Taiwanese Twitter. These islands of Matsu as well as Kinmen, where I am right now, maybe they should not stay with Taiwan, because as I have asked quite a lot of local ladies, they do not think themselves as Taiwanese. And that makes sense, right? Because they are literally just 2 miles off the coast of southern Fujian, and they have the culture of southern Fujian. They have the people of southern Fujian, but they are kind of distinct from the rest of the Taiwanese population. And not to mention, it is so close that despite all of the embargoes, almost all of the goods available here are from mainland China. Yeah, these are all from mainland China. Somehow they managed to make their way here, and a vast majority of the items here are actually mainland Chinese. No matter how hard you try to prevent it, seems like these islands should not belong with Taiwan, but that's just my personal opinion. Let me know what you want to deal with these islands if you are the god of the Chinese. Let me know in the comments. Also, something really interesting, and I don't know where to put it, maybe it's not even in the video, is that I'm now on my way back. So this is the departure hall. You can see much less grandiose on the Taiwanese side, or the Kinmen side. And you can see there's a few ladies loitering around the departure hall. They're actually recruiting mules. So I've been approached and offered 100 RMB, which is about, I think it's about like $15, to actually transport 2 bottles of Kinmen rice wine, like a Kaoliang wine. So it's a sorghum wine into the other side, because it is extremely delicious and valuable apparently in China. So yeah, this is very interesting. You can even earn a side living hustle just running back and forth, and a lot of people do that. Like as you can see in the markets, a lot of the goods are being illegally trafficked from the other side in Fujian province here into Kinmen, and a lot of them are being openly sold on the markets. And on the other side, you can illegally traffic 2 bottles of very distilled heavy alcohol spirits into China, and you can sell them for a very hefty profit. After traveling almost a week in this place with 2 strange sides, I realized I have a newfound appreciation of this world. It is astonishing how peaceful these places are. And it is evident that both sides benefited tremendously from this lasting peace. Xiamen managed to turn itself from a rusting seaside fishing village into a bustling city with millions of people.
And the other side, the Kinmen Islands, managed to turn the bunkers into souvenir shops. It is particularly comforting seeing that the old turret bunkers that literally has the words "killing enemies have rewards" now have become little castles for kids to climb on top and play hide and seek. And old war rooms are now turned into places where you can mail your postcards. How far have we come? In the age of media sensationalism, I think we often fail to appreciate how much our forefathers have done for us. They created the peace that we now enjoy, and it is our turn to stabilize the peace so that our children have a chance to perpetuate it. And yet, it seems to be increasingly difficult as now the media only portray things as black or white, never in between. But the truth is always different shades of gray. And this is why I came here. I'm not here to convince you with one side of the argument or the other. I'm just here to see the ambiguous reality. And this is also why I made this video. To show you that it is not a simple reunification or independence problem. And to show you what it is really like on the ground in person. And let you make your own shade of gray. But no matter where you stand, I think we can all 100% agree. No matter what happens, peace is absolutely necessary. We now see these stretches of beaches filled to the brink with laughter, but less than half a century ago, it was filled with the horrifying echoes of bombardments. And if we are not careful, the echoes are gonna come back in less than half a century. So it is up to us, everyone in this world, to maintain the peace. Because we live in an age where anger is advertised and hate is monetized. We have to find the long-term peace and seek solution despite how much we think we hate each other. Because if you go and visit just like I did, you will find out that there is no vitriolic arguments online, no definitive wrong and right, and no never-ending power struggles. It is just a bunch of people living on two stretches of golden sands.
Well, this is the interesting maritime border between the two warring China in this very, very narrow strait. And I genuinely hope that you have enjoyed today's video. And if you did so, please consider hitting up that like button. It would really help me out. And also do consider hitting up that subscribe button because I travel all around the world and I discover interesting borders and stories like this very one. And as for this beach, I genuinely hope that you do not see this beach ever again, especially not in a CNN news broadcast about the next coming war, and definitely not from your nuclear bunker. As for me now, well, like all of the other guys on this beach, on both sides of this strait, I think I have some crabs to catch. Oh, whoa, I see a big one right there.